Good afternoon. This is the Midday International News Desk. My name is Joyce Iyakwari. Here are the headlines. Young King announces victory and promises transformation on day one. Israel launches missile attack near Syria's Damascus. Great distress, Bangladesh bears brutal costs of climate crisis. Nationwide emergency declared in Ethiopia as rebels advance. 5 killed in South Sudan plane crash. 110 journalists killed in the Republic of Congo since January 2021. The Glasgow COP26 reaction from Nairobi. Here are the details of the news. Republican Glenn Youngkin proclaimed victory in Virginia's high-stakes governor's race immediately after it was projected. He will win the state's highest office, saying he will bring transformation to the state. The newly elected governor said, and I quote, "Together we will change the trajectory of this Commonwealth, and friends, we are going to start that transformation on day one. There is no time to waste." End of quote. Young King then swiftly proceeded to the topic of education, a key issue which helped drive him to victory over Terry McAuliffe, the Democrat. McAuliffe has still not called Young Eve to concede the Virginia governor's race, a campaign aide said in a report, and said he is unlikely to do so yet tonight. According to Young King, we are going to restore excellence in our schools, he said. We will invest the largest education budget in the history of the Commonwealth. We are going to introduce choice within our public school system. He further stated that they are going to embrace their parents, not ignore them, referencing to the comment made by McAuliffe in September, in which he suggested that parents ought not to tell schools what to teach. Young King then advanced on to the cost of living, which has bothered many Virginians, and inflation increases, saying he will step down prices across the state and lower taxes. He added that this stopped being a campaign long ago because this is the spirit of Virginia coming together like never before. This is the spirit of Washington, Jefferson, Madison, and Monroe standing up and taking their Commonwealth back. Syrian state, in a report early on Wednesday citing a military source, said Israel has set up a floating attack with a number of missiles aiming at an area on the outskirts of the Syrian capital of Damascus, adding that the attack resulted in some material damage and there was no immediate comment from Israeli officials. Israel also fired missiles toward the suburbs of the Syrian capital last Saturday, but they were seized by the air fortifications of Syria. On October 14, an Israeli air attack on Iranian positions in central Syria also killed 9 fighters allied to the Syrian government. The attacks came days after Syria blamed Israel of carrying out an attack in the country's south. Israel, alarmed by Iran's increasing regional impact and military presence in Syria, has held hundreds of attacks in Syria over the years, but seldom acknowledges such operations. The attacks on the Syria regularly happen during the night. Israel has accepted its targeting bases, weapon convoys, and facilities relating to Iran-allied militias, such as the powerful Lebanese Hezbollah group. It is also targeting arms shipment believed to be bound for the group. According to experts, the repercussions of global warming are overwhelming Bangladesh and shattering the livelihoods of millions, especially augmented cyclones and flooding that bring salt water further inland. Bangladesh, a country of about 160 million, has historically contributed a fraction of the world's emission, and yet the low-lying delta nation is hard hit by climate change. Floods break through the mud banks years after years, washing away crops and villages' homes. In 1973, 833,000 hectares of land were affected by encouraging seawater accelerated by more frequent cyclones and higher tides that have contaminated water supplies. This grew to 1.02 million hectares in 2000, and 1.05 million hectares in 2009. According to Bangladesh Soil Resources Development Institute, salinity in soil has increased by 26% over the past 35 years. During the 26th UN Climate Change Conference, known as COP26 in Glasgow, Scotland, from October 31, with representatives from the world, experts said countries at Bangladesh will press for more financial support to cope with global warming. Rabbi Sadiq Ahmed from Pali Kamal Sahayak Foundation, that is the PKSF, a development organization that works for sustainable poverty reduction in Bangladesh, said that they don't have ample financial and technical capacity to address all the issues, and so they need external and internal support. According to reports on Tuesday, Ethiopia's cabinet declared a nationwide state of emergency after Tigranian rebels seized two crucial towns in a clear push towards the capital. As reported, the state of emergency is aimed at protecting civilians from atrocities being committed by the terrorist TPLF group in many parts of the country. Lawmakers are expected to approve the measure within 24 hours, the report said. In recent days, the TPLF has claimed control of two key cities about 400 kilometers from Addis Ababa and has not ruled out marching on the capital, which has so far not seen any fighting. The government has denied claims of TPLF territorial gains, which, if confirmed, will represent a major strategic advance. Most of the northern Ethiopia is under a communication blackout and access for journalists is restricted, making battlefield claims difficult to verify independently. Officials ordered on Tuesday said that Addis Ababa residents should register their firearms and prepare to defend their neighborhoods. The international community has voiced alarm at the growing conflict, with Western powers reiterating calls for an instant ceasefire and for the African Union to broker peace talks between the warring parties. And on the sad news, airport officials said on Tuesday when a cargo carrying fuel for the UN's World Food Programme crashed near South Sudan's capital, Juba. 5 people were killed. The aircraft crashed shortly after taking off from Juba's international airport, killing everyone on board. David Sobak, head of the South Sudan Civil Aviation Authority, said in a report that 1 is a South Sudanese, 2 are Sudanese, and 2 are Ukrainians. The cargo plane was reportedly carrying 28 barrels of fuel for the WFP to Mamban. According to the report by the airport's Director General, Kurku, the plane hit a mango tree, caught fire, and the people on board were burnt. Emergency workers had collected 5 bodies that were burnt beyond recognition, said South Sudan Red Cross. South Sudan, a young nation that gained independence in 2011, has been in the throes of chronic economic and political crisis, lacks a reliable transport infrastructure, with plane crashes often blamed on overloading and poor weather. On March 3, President Salva ordered the suspension of an airline after one of its planes crashed in the country's east, killing all 10 people on board with the 2 pilots. The aircraft belonging to South Sudan Supreme Airlines crashed in Jonglei State shortly after taking off from Pereira. Another plane owned by local company Southwest Aviation crashed in August last year, killing 4 passengers and 3 crew. The cargo plane had been carrying cash to the Wall region in the country's northwest for Juba-based Opportunity Bank. Overloading of planes is common in South Sudan and was believed to have contributed to the 2015 crash of an Antonov plane in Juba that left 36 people dead. The international journalist organization known as the Journalists in Danger, JED, said that 110 journalists have been killed in the Democratic Republic of Congo since the beginning of this year. In a report entitled Bad Times for the Press in the Republic of Congo published on November 2nd, which coincide with the International Day Against Impunity and Crimes Against Journalists. The organization declared that these attacks were targeted at both journalists and even media organizations in the Republic of Congo. The organization, which is a partner of Reporters Without Borders, calls on Kinshasa to identify the perpetrators so that they can be brought to justice. Taiva Hundi, head of GED in Kaivo, said, "What they want is for the government to put an end to the impunity of those who are known predators of press freedom, because behind an infringement of press freedom, there's a predator." And in their report, they have revealed incidents, victims, and perpetrators. According to the organization, more than half of the cases of press freedom violation is about the physical safety of journalists and are made up of threats that result in assassination, physical attacks, and journalists forced to live in hiding, far from their homes and families to escape death. They also allege that some of the threats come from militiamen and political militants. Jonathan Kumbi, a journalist in the Republic of Congo, said, "If the journalists are worried, they will not be able to give through information to the public today. There are subjects that they cannot be covered. There are areas that seem to be slippery just because they are in a state of siege. They also have restrictions and they must not talk about military matters." As COP26 started in Glasgow, Scotland, Kenyan reactions were mixed in Nairobi on Tuesday. The agenda for the conference has been set up as a determination to get world leaders to fully commit to controlling climate change in a solemn way, though many have voiced concerns that the action won't go far enough. Environmentalist and climate change expert in Kenya, Namea Daniel Naburi, said solution must not be a one-size-fits-all approach. He added that, and I quote, "For us in the African continent, we need to structure our institutions, the response to climate change issue in such a way that it is a tailor-made to fit the African person and the African culture," end of quote. He said, adding, "We should not be copying and pasting what happens in the West and bring them to Africa." Eze Christina, a Nigerian national living in Kenya, said she didn't believe there was a need to have the conference. This is all the news for the Midday International News Desk today. My name is Joyce Iyakwari, and we just want to appreciate you for watching. Join us tomorrow as we come your way, same time. Have a great day ahead.